Okay, I am back with section 1.6, part 2. Right now we're going to talk about compound inequalities. Compound inequalities are two inequalities. They are joined by either an and or an or. If it's or, it's going to be spelled out with the word or. If it's and, it's not spelled out, and it's going to look something like this. So notice this does not have the word and, but that's what it means. When you're solving a compound inequality, you still have to solve it just like you normally would. If you have an and statement, what you need to do is get the x by itself. But the thing of it is your x is going to be in the middle. And normally when you solve an equation, what you do to one side, you do to the other. Well, with an and inequality, you have actually three sides. So you got to do it to all three places. So let's suppose I have negative 3 is less than negative 1 minus 2x is less than or equal to 5. And I want to solve it. So I have to get my x by itself in the middle. So I have to get rid of that negative 1. So I'm going to add it. Now when I add it, I have to add it in the middle, but I also have to add it to the left side. I also, don't forget, you have to add it to the right side as well. So when you have negative 3 and you add 1, you get negative 2. 5 add 1, you get 6. And in the middle, the negative 1 plus 1, the negatives, or the 1's cancel out. All right. Now I still have that negative 2 times x. I got to divide. So I got to divide by negative 2. But don't forget, it has to be done in all three places. And I'm dividing by negative, so not only that, I got to flip my signs. So flip the sign, flip the sign. Last thing, with this kind of inequality, we never, ever, ever write it with the arrows. First of all, they have to go in the same direction, but we never write it with the arrows pointing to the right. We always, 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 always write the answer with the arrows pointing to the left. So if you're going to do that, these two numbers, notice they had to switch sides. This 1 has to go over here. The negative 3 has to go over here. And then, depends on the directions, you either graph it on the number line or you write it in interval notation. Now, when you have a compound inequality that's an or, you got to solve both of them. Solve both of them. So I solve this one, I get x is less than 2. I solve this one, I get x is greater than 3. You would write your answer with an or. Don't forget. All right, so let's look at example 14. I have 5 is less than 3x minus 4 is less than 14, and I want to solve it. So I have to get this x by itself. I got to get rid of the 4 first, so add 4. Don't forget on the right. Don't forget on the left. Has to be in 3 different spots. 9 is less than or equal to 3x is less than 18. So now I have to get rid of the 3. It's 3 times x. Opposite of times is divide. I'm dividing by a positive 3. When I divide by a positive 3, I do not have to flip the sign, which is nice. Okay. So the directions say to graph the answer. So my 3 is on the left, smallest number. My 6 is on the right, it's the largest number. And x is in the middle, means shade in the middle. This is less than or equal to, which requires a bracket. And this is just less than, so the 6 gets parentheses. And I don't know if you can hear those guys next door, but they're being kind of rowdy, so I apologize. I don't know what they're doing over there. Okay, the 3 is on the left, the 6 is on the right, the 3 had a bracket, and the 6 had the parentheses. Remember, the number on the left has to be smaller than the number on the right. Always, always, always. Number on the left has to be smaller than the number on the right. Example 15 is an or. That means I've got to solve this one. I've also got to solve this one. Okay, so I have 9x minus 6 is less than 3x. When you're working with inequalities, it's always, 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 always better to have a positive x. So I'm going to subtract the 3x. Now, what do we have on the right-hand side? I have 3x, subtract 3x. That's a 0. If nothing is left on the right-hand side, you have to put the 0. This is not a case where you can ignore the 0. You got to put the 0 there. Add 6 and divide by 6. I'm dividing by positive. I do not have to flip. Okay, now I need to solve the other one. This time I have to divide by -2. When you divide by negative, you must flip that sign. X is greater than or equal to -6 divided by -2 is +3. Now, when you're graphing your answer, you got to graph this one. You also have to graph this one. So we've got a 1, and it's less than 1, smaller than 1, which means go off to the left. Here I have 3. It's greater than 3. Greater than 3 means bigger than 3, which means go off to the right. The 1, we had a less than, so that's parentheses. Open your parentheses in the direction of the shading. And the 3 had greater than or equal to, that's a bracket. And put your bracket opening in the direction of the shading. All right. Now, notice I've got a shading over here. That requires an interval. Smallest number is -infinity because it keeps on going to the left. That's negative. Number on the right is 1, and that has a parenthesis. And then I also need an interval for this side. Number on the left is 3, and it keeps on going to the right. That's +infinity. Infinity always gets parentheses. The 3 had a bracket. Now, since I have two different intervals, we usually put, it looks like a U, but it's not a U. It actually stands for union, but it's not actually a U. Notice I don't have the little, I don't know what you call it, but it doesn't have that little tail. So it kind of looks like a U, but it's not a U. And we just draw a symbol like that. All right, example 16, I'm going to have you work that one on your own. And there we go.